Arakal TV நேயர்களுக்கு வணக்கம். So today we are going to have a discussion primarily centered on EIA, Environmental Impact Assessment 2020, the notification which has been making a lot of rounds in the social media as well as in the mainstream media regarding the impacts and also the future implications of the notification that has come out. So today we have four eminent experts from their own right. We have Thiru Karthikeya Sivasenadipati. He's the managing director of Senadipati Kangayam Cattle Research Foundation and a very staunch environmental activist. And we have Mr. Joseph Hoover, who is the freelance journalist and a wildlife activist. And he's part of the State Board for Wildlife. And we have Ms. Meera, who is the advocate who is volunteering on environmental issues. And we have Mr. Himakiran Anugala, who's an environmental activist as well as a staunch activist for organic agriculture, sustainable organic agriculture. We welcome you all, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'd like to take this conversation forward with a very small introduction to the topic that we have to the viewers. So the assessment notification that we're talking about, the Ministry of Environmental, Forest and Climate Change has issued this draft environmental impact assessment notification in March 2020. This becomes very critical because it's a lockdown period. The 2nd of March, the third week of March saw the start of the lockdown period, and we have this very important critical document which has been announced by, which has been issued by the central government, and it asks for all the inputs from all the stakeholders. But of course, the opening paragraph of this draft notification states the purpose of this notification is imposing certain restrictions and prohibition on development projects. So that is the opening remark of the draft notification. But we have all the stakeholders who have come out very strongly and said there has been a loosening of norms or the regulations in comparison to the existing Environmental Impact Act of 2006. So I would like to take the question. The first question would be, what are the changes that you see, sir? What are the changes, the very glaring loosening of the regulation or the norms from the 2006 Act that we have and the 2020 notification that we have? So this question I would like to direct to Ms. Meera, and then I would like to ask Mr. Karthikeya Sivasenadipati as well as Joseph Hoover to give their opinions.
Okay, so there are quite a few of them. So if you look at it structurally, if you see general conditions, there is what is called a general conditions. So in the general conditions earlier, it was from a protected area or from an eco-sensitive area or a critically polluted area. It was all these projects were supposed to operate, only beyond the 10-kilometer boundary. Now what has happened is the 10-kilometer boundary itself has been reduced. So certain projects have been moved to 5-kilometer, and there are even projects where the general conditions don't even apply. Right? So that is one structural issue which applies to a large number of projects. The second is introduction of a category called category B2. So when you introduce a new category and when you move the thresholds back and forth, or rather, for example, if you have a threshold which was earlier, like for an example is category coke ovens, right? In coke ovens, the threshold has been increased from 2.5 lakh tons per annum to 8 lakh tons per annum for coke ovens. So when you look at it, though it is in category A, until 8 lakh tons per annum, only beyond 8 lakh tons per annum, only it's treated as category A. Till then, it is not category A. So there are so many such dilutions, with respect to threshold changes that has happened in the against industries. Category B2, ultimately, there are close to 25 plus red and orange toxic industries which have been moved to category B2. So when you say category B2 doesn't have public consultation. So when you have toxic industries coming right next to your backyard or next to the protected area or any such critically important zones, the public do not have the voice to basically take part in the whole process of an environment impact assessment. So there are many such structural issues that are there. In certain cases, there are the approver and the appraiser are the same, and which essentially means that there is a conflict of interest, right? So similar such dilutions you will see all over. National highways earlier in the 2006, it was beyond anything. Beyond 30 kilometers, you needed an environment impact assessment. It was treated as category A. Now up to 100 kilometers, right? Only beyond 100 kilometers, it is treated as category A. So if you just compare it with EIA 2006 against EIA 2020, there are so many such dilutions all over.
Okay. On that note, on the dilution of the norms that we talk about, and also the question we have, and also the issue around the B2 category B2 that you raised, we will definitely come back to that in a much later part of the conversation. So now I would like to take the conversation to Karthikeya Sivasenadipati on the impact of this changes that is proposed in the notification, and also the impact it can have on the ecosystem per se, sir. Would love to have your views.
Before I go into the proposed amendment to the Act of Environmental Impact Assessment, I would like to say a few things about how this government since 2014 has been handling the environment. In any government all over the world in a democratic country, you will have a prime minister or a chief minister or a president, where you have an environment minister and a commerce industries development minister in your cabinet. The commerce and the industries minister, generally they say, at any cost, we need development, we need growth, GDP, GNP, and all these things they will be talking about. They'll be talking more about the corporate point of view, development point of view, and all that. An environment minister is somebody who says at any cost, environment should be given first preference. We need to protect the environment, because if we ruin the environment, we are all going to be in trouble. For the first time in democratic India since 1952, we have an environment minister who talks about commerce, development, and growth. He says, let environment we don't have to worry about the environment, but we need to worry about development. This says about the environment policy of the present government since 2014. So telling this, let me come to EIA. The EIA, for example, in a layman's term, as a lawyer, Ms. Meera spoke about the legal issues. This EIA amendment says, initially it was anybody inside India can object to a project to environmental degradation supposed to happen anywhere in the country. Then it was said only people who may be affected by the project will be able to oppose through the Environmental Impact Act. Now the act says, the proposed act says, the people who can object to the proposal are the officials of the Government of India or the State Environment or Biodiversity Board, or people in the company which is supposed to come and put up a project there. This is atrocious. They're not going to object, and officials are going to follow the orders of the government of the day. So what point is there if there is going to be a stakeholder consultation or an environmental impact assessment done? It is basically for the common man, for the people to take Salem-Chennai highway. If we say the government of Tamil Nadu officials in the environment ministry are going to object to the Salem-Chennai highway proposal, they're not going to object at all. If it is a body like which is there in America, they have a very good environment protection body, a federal agency, which opposes even the president of the United States when it feels that there is going to be an environmental degradation in the state or in the country. But in India, we don't have such an environmental protection agency, which is a independent body by itself. Although we have the National Biodiversity Authority or the Green Bench, we know the status of Green Bench in the last 4-5 years, what's been happening in the Green Bench. For Salem-Chennai highway, when I tried to go and petition the Green Bench in the Madras bench of the National Green Tribunal, they said we don't have enough judges. We need 3 judges to have a quorum. So you go to Delhi. When my advocate, Mr. Amit Tiwari, filed a petition in the National Green Tribunal in Delhi, the NGT says, first you will have to write to the National Highways Authority and you'll have to wait for 15 days before you get a reply from them, and then you should come to us. We wrote to them, we got no reply, and with the acknowledgement of the letter, we again go to the NGT. NGT says go to the Supreme Court because the matter is already listed in the Madras High Court. This is what the National Grievance Tribunal is practically ruined in the last 5-6 years. What it was, a very powerful body. In fact, the Supreme Court of India is the world's largest court, the most powerful court, and we know what's happening to the NGT today.
Okay. On that note of how the NGT was and how the NGT is, I'd like to take the conversation to Mr. Joseph Hoover to provide a glimpse of what are the trials and tribulations that the stakeholders are facing because of this changed norms in this specific notification, sir.
See, first of all, I would like to say that the government is pro-industry, pro-commerce, anti-environment, anti-people. So the whole thing is very clear. As Mr. Shiva Senapati said earlier, we have a commerce minister and a forest minister who's the same. So when Prakash Javadekar talks about development, he is definitely diluting our forests, all our hikes. So this is the way it's going. And today we are faced with such a critical situation that we are not even able to contest this. If this particular draconian EIA is passed, I think we are all in big trouble, because earlier at least people had the voice, or they could go and contest saying.
Sir, we have lost your sound. Hello? Hello, sir, we have lost your sound. Hello, sir. Yes. I think there was an issue. I think there was an issue with Mr. Joseph's bandwidth. So what I would like to do is, like, I'd like to take the question to Mr. Himakaran here. Hello, sir. So meanwhile, as the technical issues are there, so I'd like to take it to Mr. Himakaran for his views, sir.
Thanks, Jay. I'm from Chennai. My native is Tiruvallur, and if you look at Tiruvallur district, it's the water-bearing area for Chennai, and we've been fighting against a highway project called the 716B Expressway. Essentially, it's a route connecting from Chittoor to Tachur, which is on the Calcutta Highway, and connectivity for the Adani Port project in Kattupalli. Earlier it used to be L&T's project, and now it's being expanded from 300 acres to 6,000 acres. It's at the Ennur estuary, and the mouth of the river Kosastalayar. If you remember the 2015 Chennai floods, right? Everybody knows that when the Chembrambakam tank was full and they couldn't open it due to political issues and delays in administrative decision making. They had to open it up the next day, and then the entire central and southern Chennai got flooded, and then they had to close the dam. But it was still raining, and the water was diverted from the Pundi Dam through the Kosastalayar into the Ennur estuary and into the sea. So if you look at the entire Tiruvallur district stretch of the Greater Chennai area, there was hardly any fatalities. There was hardly any property damage, except for Tiruvallur Ennur area, where you have construction, like the Enfield factory and a couple of other industries. So the problem here is you need to look at local people's traditional knowledge systems and have consultation, right? It's not about telling them what is good for them, right? It's about understanding how people of my district have been not constructing in areas where water logging is, where water bodies, rather rivers flow or water accumulates, right? This is traditional and based on hundreds of years of experience. If you don't listen to them, right, and if you don't give a chance for public, the people living in that area, right, I see ourselves as custodians of the natural resources of our area, not owners of it, right? So we are just custodians while we are here for the future generation. So if you don't allow for public consultations, then the project engineer, the consulting company, in fact, for the same project, the consulting company, they had come up with a project report, and it was rejected by the government because we raised objections. They had used data from the Arabian Sea, biodiversity which is found only in the Arabian Sea, and they had put that in the report for Bay of Bengal, right? The fish species. So basically, it was a copy paste job. So after we made a lot of objections, we did a lot of RTs. So finally, it's at the stage where it is being bulldozed its way through. They've made some alignment changes, but right, the new EIA says you can expand up to 70 meters, 100-kilometer stretch, right? 70 meters is quite wide, right? And then you will go over a lot of water bodies. What we call Varat Kalvais, right? The entire northern Tamil Nadu, southern Andhra areas, lake systems, area systems, right? They're all interconnected. They're called system areas. So water from upstream village will flow to a downstream village's lake, and we irrigate the fields. And interconnectivity is like a nervous system. Most of these projects, right, they don't consider these issues. They will look at a river and say we'll put a overbridge with stilts, whatever. But then they don't look at the number of water channels that you are blocking. So essentially, what happened in Chennai during the floods is going to happen in our district. And they had a public consultation, and the public consultation is quite pathetic. It's stage managed mostly, but when some people get involved with real intent of voicing their opinion, they find ways to somehow not allow it to completion. But if you're saying no, there is no need for public consultation for these projects, and like Meera mentioned, they have so many toxic industries and polluting industries being moved to this new category called B2, where essentially it's blanket approvals, right? Saying you can do whatever you want, and if the government officials and the industry, the industry owners, if they are the only deciding authorities, I mean, are we in a democracy? I mean, I don't think so, right? You have to listen to people.
Yes. So, I mean, in fact, you have raised very pertinent points about the EIAs, which are very, very badly written EIAs, copy paste EIAs, and also the second aspect of public consultations being a very stage managed affair. And even if someone is going to intervene with direct intent, with a real intent, how they are sort of neutralized or neutered or silenced for the entire process to go through. So here, I would like to take the question again to Ms. Meera on how effective was 2006 Act actually, because these are all the very structural issues. In fact, integral issues that was plaguing the 2006 Act, especially the fact about very badly written EAs. Is there any check and balance mechanism for someone to actually get into this EAA documents and say, hey, you see that it's really wrong, and you have to sort of revoke the clearance that we have given? Is some sort of a mechanism, is it available as part of 2006, and what is there in 2020, Meera?
So if you look at the public consultation process itself, what Himakaran brought out is a very important issue. One, today, even if there is a consultation, the timeline has been reduced, from X days to X minus Y days, right? Now, when we really look at it, if you have to go for a public consultation, what are the documents available to the public? Even if the public is going for a consultation, do they have all the documents that is with respect to a particular project, right? If you ask, in principle, it should be available in Parivesh. Parivesh is a single window clearance website where it should be available. So if you just go and if you have very good a fair amount of internet browsing skills and a fair amount of understanding these websites and to navigate through that, you will be able to find out. But for a very rural, local person, that information sitting in Parivesh is of no use, because unless it is disseminated in the local language through the panchayats, this information sitting in Parivesh is of no use for the local person who is a real stakeholder with respect to the toxicity of the project or whatever, right? So ideally, if you ask me, there is a lot more that should be done with respect to public consultation even today. The current mode of public consultation, information is not available. People just go and then they are given half-cooked information, half-baked information, and ideally there should be a video recording, but then there will be people who are pro project proponent who will come and kind of take over the show. All this happens, right, in a remote place where such consultations are happening. And moreover, when there are folks who are opposing, they have no threat with respect to their, how do you give them a mechanism for free speech itself? Many people are worried that even their lives will be in danger if something is opposed and all that stuff. So these are the issues. So ideally, there should be a ground for these kind of issues to be straightened. The public consultation to be a little bit more easy or democratic process where the larger public, who are the actual stakeholders, are able to voice their opinion. So there is definitely a lot of scope for improvement in that. Not just that, even making things available in the local language. Today, it's not available in the local language. How, none of these people are aware of what exactly is happening. Many of these places as a big concern, right? So ideally speaking, if somebody is filing an RTI, today RTI, the number of days, minimum number of days is 60 days. Ideally speaking, if something is not there in Parivesh, the public should be given a chance to file an RTI, give that 60 days, and over and beyond that 60 days, give another 60 days. So ideally, I would say it should be 120 days, as a notice period for public consultation, right? Even beyond that, if you look at the EIA process itself, one of the primary issues, it's a project proponent who is funding the EIA itself. So there is conflict of interest in that. So how can an EIA report be written by the project proponent? So there is definitely scope for moving that to a centralized body, which is independent of the project proponent and which is actually part of the public, right? So these are things that should be, taken as a structural issue and strengthened. So nobody is claiming that EIA 2006 is a perfect one. But if you're further diluting EIA 2006 through a notification called EIA draft 2020, then there is a real problem.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, with your comments, I'm going over to Mr. Joseph. I hope the bandwidth is a bit clear now. So my question is, Miss Meera spoke about how opaque the process is, the process of EA, how the EA is written, and also how the EA is evaluated, and how the public consultations are. My question is, most of the times the EA documents that are made to public, it is quite dense. The EA documents are very dense, and for any layman to get into these EA documents and understand and sort of like dissect the document to understand like what actually is the problem and what actually is the solution that is proposed by the proponent to sort of get over the issues. In your experience, I'm sure you would have seen n number of EA consultation meetings in your in your career. I would love to know like how does a local person, because this EIA draft, the draft EIA says that only the person who is from that area can voice concerns. They are explicitly denying people from other parts of the country to sort of like raise issues on a on a project that is happening in some remote place. So if such is the case, how is that happening, sir? It's like kindly sort of like unbox it for us.
See, as the question you put in the right way is that when you look at it, it is so complex. If you talk about activists, conservationists, or people who are genuinely interested in environment, conservation, all stuff, even they don't get a understanding of what this EIA whole thing is about. You need really to get to do research on it, as Meera has done, because she has studied both 2006 as well as the present draft. So it's highly impossible. If you ask me, I wouldn't have the time. I always have to depend on somebody else because we are busy with other things as well in life. So when you look at it, only a layman, as a local person, he has no clue what is happening around him. If something is brought in, an industry is brought next to his farm, he has no clue what he should do about it. He just says, okay, the government is doing something, I'll let it go. So he has no clue. This is how it is all about. Coming back to the real issue is, this particular EIA has come at a time when the entire world is going through a crisis. We know the extreme climate events which have been hammering us every now and then. There are floods, there are droughts, and there are kind of diseases. Look at the coronavirus, it's spreading. And this is a time when the government should have common sense to understand this people's life. Our people are the investment. We talk about human resources, we talk about culture, everything. But at the same time, this very government just ignores us. I mean, if you can't understand that the coronavirus is coming out of zoonotic influences from lack of biodiversity, I think these guys have lost it. At one time, we have our prime minister talking about we should preserve and protect our biodiversity. And at the other end, he has his hatchet man who goes about denuding a forest, and then he comes up with some brilliant EIA, which is more destructive than productive. So these guys lack common sense. They need to understand at this critical time when the country is going through this, the whole world is going through a change because of the global climate advance, and we are just allowing this thing to happen, and this government thinks they can do whatever they want. It's unfortunate that people do not have a voice today. Even that little voice we had, that has been taken away by these kind of like what you discussed, like saying that only the local person should be able to talk about it, and he will not understand what the whole thing is about. People like you and me, maybe, yes, we should raise a voice, but then we are stopped from doing that. So it's all well planned. They're ruthless. They don't care about us. They don't care about the environment. It's all about GDP, and they don't understand this GDP will not last because without good health, we need to invest a lot of money on that.
Sure, sir. On that note, on this problem of the distribution of experts across the country, because when we look at the distribution of experts across the country, of course the experts are always concentrated on certain parts of the country, and there are vast tracts of land which has no experts to sort of get into these documents to sort of understand the implications, as well as to conduct a parallel investigation to understand, to sort of conduct a parallel investigation to understand the impact of these projects. So my question is to you again, sir. Can you remember of any incidents? Can you remember of any incidents wherein about these EIA documents, how they are made, how these EIA documents are made, and how these EIA documents are analyzed? I mean, what is the vetting process that goes through to sort of like understand whether this EIA document is real, whether it holds legit or not?
See, the way it is being done, it is a set of people who have got an agenda. They've been told, the government has told these gentlemen, or whoever they are, to do just exactly what they've been told to do, right? So there's no thought process into that. It's just they want to even if you are intelligent enough to raise a question, they want to stop you there. When you look at not just the EIA, even the Forest Act was the same issue. And then we raised an objection to that. We said, no, this cannot be allowed. Everywhere you notice that this set of people who are all just going with what the government says, they're just following that. Of course, there was a time when there were people who had the guts to raise questions, but unfortunately, they are not there. And today, if you look at the National Board for Wildlife and even the MOAF secretary, whoever it is, they're all just thumb impressions there. They just follow what the government says. So it is, I mean, there should be some kind of a critical assessment. If somebody says, okay, I'm going to do this, there should be an objection saying that, no, this cannot be done because this is going to be the impact on what you're going to do. But that is not happening. This is very unfortunate. It's very scary. I mean, I've been in a situation where I have seen that we are told, I was part of the State Wildlife Board when one of the PCCF comes and tells me, no, this is what we need to do. I said, no, that's your thinking. We are looking at it differently. So let's not carry your idea into the meeting. So this is how they prepare. They manipulate. Mm-hmm. They prepare. They said, okay, let's go with this agenda. Let's finish with this. That's not what we see. At the end of the day, it's all about conservation. It's not about me and you or somebody being big, somebody being smart. It's not that. So the whole game plan is manipulation, and now it is becoming more and more disgraceful that all they do is, we are going to do this and that's it, and people don't have a say in that. This is very, very unfortunate. Until people stand up and ask questions, unless we raise questions, this will continue. And I'm very disappointed the way this EIA has been handled. We are not even getting support from all the celebrities. You look at them, they're all worried. I spoke to a few of the celebrities. They're saying, listen, we are worried what the government will do. They're worried where the government will track them through the income tax, to the CBI or the ED. This is the kind of fear psychosis everybody is going through. We need people to raise questions. And what happens is, when we don't have the celebrities, the icons stepping in and talking, thanks to Tamil Nadu, some of the hackers have come in and they're talking about it, but you don't see it happening elsewhere. So unless these kind of people come and voice their opinion, people will not follow. And that's where we need to now raise our voice and say, let's start spreading this message, ask people to react. Because if we continue to be sitting like this, we'll be run by a dictator, and that's the end of us. And our forest is gone.
I mean, it's quite a harrowing account. I mean, especially your comments, as well as the account with Mr. Karthikeya Sivasenathan mentioned about his own experience with the Green Tribunal, the Green Bench in Madras High Court. So I direct your question again to you, sir. What do you feel about the experience or the immediate reaction of these ground groups, the grassroots groups? I mean, of course, in Western Tamil Nadu, because I'm sure. I mean, there are many issues which are going around in Western Tamil Nadu, specifically the Gale pipeline issue, and also the many other environmental issues which are sort of plaguing the Western Tamil Nadu. What is the reaction on the ground with regards to this change notification? Because we were facing issues even with the 2006 Act, and now this notification. How does these groups plan to sort of take on these changes, proposed changes by the central government?
Yeah, this is something that we look forward to from the youth of Tamil Nadu.
To me,
Sir, sorry, the question was...
at least some voice has been raised from Tamil Nadu. We are seeing a lot of reactions. EIA has been spoken about, being discussed. It's fantastic. It's very encouraging. But from what I have gathered over the last 3 years, I've been following what's happening in Tamil Nadu environment issues. We are not finding too many people there who can raise questions. There are certain groups who are holding on to this forte, and they're saying it's their domain and they need to do what they do. That should not be the case. There should be no domination. It should be a people's involvement. This is where Tamil Nadu is lacking. From my own sincere effort that I've been seeing is that there's not much response. I deal more with wildlife conservation, so I'm seeing the situation there is very, very bleak. So I'm happy that we are able to discuss this today, and we have some noted environmentalists also on the group. The youth in Tamil Nadu need to raise this up. Otherwise, we are lost. If you look at the Western Ghats today, we are being threatened. We are talking about 27 lakh trees being hammered, being decimated. And it's going to be having a cascading effect on all of us. Where are you going to get the water from? The rivers go dry, we are all gone. So this is where we need to talk to the youth and motivate them to saying that please don't be cushy, worry, thinking about you have Wi-Fi, you have electricity. No, you need to worry about what is the future tomorrow, because it is very, very bleak. Already we're talking about the scientists saying that 2021 there is not going to be water, right? And it's not very far. And then when we're talking about 2050 is going to be when the great extinction happens, the sixth mass extinction. But we don't have to wait that long. Way this government is driving us, it could happen in 2030, even before that. So this is where the youth need to step in. We appeal to all the people in Tamil Nadu, especially the youth. Please raise your voice. Please do something about this before it's too late, because it may not impact you. It is definitely going to impact your children, your grandchildren. You need to raise your voice. You need to ask questions. We are a democratic country. We have not lost it yet. We need to ask questions. Let's ask some steering questions. Let's rattle the government. Let the government realize this cannot go on. We are here to protect. As the Constitution gives us the rights, 51 AG says that we are responsible for our own environment, our natural resources. So I think we need to drive this point in and tell people in Tamil Nadu, especially Western Tamil Nadu,
Yes.
to wake up and stop all this. My appeal to them.
Sure, sir. On that note, I'm taking this question to Kartikeya Sivasenathanapati on this. I mean, the question that I had raised about how the grassroots groups in Western Tamil Nadu are responding to this change notification, and of course the question on how a common man can actually face this change notification, which is totally sort of raised against him. It is like a classic David versus Goliath. It has always been like that, and now the bar has been raised yet more.
Yeah, see, the first major problem is any government, most of the litigation in high courts and Supreme Courts is between the common man and the government of India or the government of the state.
True.
The government uses our resources, the money paid by the people as taxpayers' money, to fight us. Whereas we are compelled to arrange for sources, get some support from small people, and then work against the atrocities of the government on the common man, against the common man. நீங்க வேடிக்கையான விஷயம் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா, let me switch to Tamil for some time. நம்ம பணத்தை வாங்கி, நம்மளுடைய வரி பணத்தை வாங்கி நமக்கு எதிரான வேலைகளை அரசாங்கம் செய்யறாங்க. உதாரணத்துக்கு இந்த சுற்றுச்சூழல் சட்டம். ஆனா நம்ம அரசாங்கத்தை எடுத்து சண்டை போடுறதுக்கு, நம்ம ஹைகோர்ட்டுக்கு போறதுக்கோ சுப்ரீம் கோர்ட்டுக்கு போறதுக்கோ மிகப்பெரிய பிரச்சனை நமக்கு என்ன காரணம்னு சொல்லி பாத்தீங்கன்னா, நமக்கு பொருளாதாரம், நம்ம வேலையெல்லாம் விட்டுட்டு திரு ஜோசப் அவர்கள் சொன்ன மாதிரி நம்ம இதை படிச்சு இதுக்கு பதில் சொல்ல வேண்டிய சூழ்நிலைக்கு தள்ளப்படுறோம். இப்போ கமிங் டு வெஸ்டர்ன் தமிழ்நாடு, in 12-13, there was a major issue here where the government of Tamil Nadu, when Ms. Jayalalitha was the chief minister, wanted to implement the public works department of the government of Tamil Nadu, wanted to implement a proposal to concrete the lower Bhavani water canal for 125 miles, starting in Bhavani Sagar Erode district, which comes into Tirupur district and goes into Karur district. What happened was we opposed it on two fronts. One, more than 1 lakh mature, very mature trees will be cut. Because the trees will be cut, the bees will be lost, the biodiversity will be lost, the birds will be lost, and which will be a huge loss to biodiversity. One part. Second part was, because the canal will be concretized, it may later on be privatized because the cost of concreting the canal is 1,200 crores, which was supposed to have been funded by the World Bank. Using the environmental impact assessment and the stakeholder consultation clause, we wrote to the government of Tamil Nadu, we wrote to the Ministry of Environment and Forest, we wrote to the Honorable Chief Minister then, we also wrote to the World Bank. It was my personal letter to the World Bank stating the environmental impact assessment mandatory under Indian law, and also India being a signatory under the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity, it is illegal for World Bank to fund a project which EIA and stakeholder consultation has not been done. The World Bank, head of World Bank in India, he wrote back within 15 days a copy of the letter to me and to the Secretary, Government of Tamil Nadu Public Works Department, stating the World Bank will have to reconsider funding the government for a project for which environmental impact assessment and stakeholder consultation has not been done. The issue was taken to the Honorable Chief Minister then. When she had come to Perundurai for by-election, she declared that the government of Tamil Nadu will shelve the project and will not take it up because of objections based on EIA and stakeholder consultation. So this was an example. This is an example of how effectively EIA and stakeholder consultation can be used for the welfare of the common man, of the people. So coming back to the question, how is Western Tamil Nadu responding now? In Western Tamil Nadu, we have lots of very good groups starting from Coimbatore to Karur, working on environment, working on water bodies, working on planting trees, etc. And in some groups, which I am also a part of, there is a very serious discussion going on about Environmental Impact Assessment Act being diluted, and people take it very seriously. Only problem is, like Ms. Meera and Mr. Joseph are saying, most of the people who are working on environmental issues, who are running NGOs, are people into business, who are scared of speaking out against the proposed amendment because of the fear of income tax raids, fear of enforcement directorate raids, fear of their business being affected if they speak about this. So this fear has to go. The government has to create a situation where the government is happy about criticism, the government accepts criticism, and this government should make it clear this is not a government of crony capitalism.
Exactly.
True. On that note of the stakeholders being sort of arm handled into sort of being silenced into voicing their concerns. I'd like to take this question to Mr. Himakiran about the situation in the northern Tamil Nadu, which he is part of, and also the second point being the industrialization that is emerging out of Chennai has now entered into Tiruvallur and Kanchipuram, Tiruvallur and the areas around Kanchipuram and Sengalpet even, which is known for the lake irrigation, which is known for very fertile lands around Chennai. So because the owners, the landowners have always faced that encroaching urbanization that is happening thanks to Chennai's proximity. How is this draft being looked at by the groups in the northern parts of Tamil Nadu, especially in the vicinity of Chennai?
Yeah, so like I mean, everybody knows about the plan of the ADMK government to expand Chennai to over like 1,400 square kilometers. The entire Tiruvallur district, Kanchipuram district, the erstwhile Kanchipuram, now it's Chengalpet and Kanchipuram district, and Nemili and Arakonam taluks of Vellore district. Right now it's Ranipet district. So the entire area has been declared the Greater Chennai, like a metropolitan area, right? The problem is, and when this announcement was made about 7-8 years ago, it was welcomed by the head of the Real Estate Association of Chennai, Mr. Chabria. I don't know his first name. So the problem is this, right? He's a real estate person. His association is happy that now a lot of the rural laws that are applicable for real estate development, whatever, will be done with the urban perspective, and a lot more land will be available for monetization, right? But the problem is this, right? If you travel 20-30 kilometers out of Chennai towards the Andhra border, Tiruvallur district, you will see farming happening 2-3 times a year, right? And
Yes.
the Adani project I mentioned, they have a saying there, almost every 100-120 days they harvest paddy, because it's between the basin of the Arni River and the Kustalaya River. So projects within 10 kilometers of a river need to have extra how do I say it, screening and regulations. But then this project is actually in between Arani basin and Arani River and Kustalaya River, and it literally crisscrosses the basin in several points, right? The point is this: the people there are saying about, we don't want urbanization. You know what? We don't want to travel to Chennai and go work there and 2 hours a day, one way and come back. And we don't want that life. We are happy with what we have, right? We don't want these development projects. So my question is very simple, right? Who decides the policy for the Chennai, Greater Chennai area, right? It is called KTCC now, Kanchipuram, Tiruvallur, Chennai, Chengalpet, right? This entire region is a agroclimatic zone. It's got the same rainfall patterns. Outside of the Nilgiris, the highest rainfall happens in this region. We have a system where we capture rainfall over a 45-day period in October, November during the northeast monsoon, and that water is harvested in the tanks. And each tank has a fixed ayakat, the acreage where you can, which has the right to be irrigated by the tank water, and 1 or 2 seasons of cultivation. So the rainfall, the monsoon ends in November. So there's a Kartika Masam, which is like November, December, Pattam, and then we have Navarai, which is a unique season to this area, where we actually plant in December and harvest in March. So, and then you have a post-March, a season where we harvest in April, May, right? So we actually have 2 farming seasons when most of the other regions of Tamil Nadu will not be farming because of lack of water, right? So the way nature has, said that the human interventions of tank systems are giving us water for an 8-month period from October till June. Mm-hmm. And then you have the southwest monsoon and, convective rains and whatnot. So our primary livelihood is based on conserving the rainfall and harvesting and using it in the tank system. If we are destroying, and none of the projects, in fact, most of the collectorate buildings or the new developments of even the government sit on lake land, right? So that's the level of disconnect. And you know what? I don't know whether it's ignorance or what. Maybe a problem with the education system, but that's how it is, right? So if you destroy all the canals, and we have a lot of people working to restore water bodies, but
Yes.
if there's no water flowing between one lake and another because the Varat Kalwai, the canal has been encroached, then you're just going to have flooding at a local level rather than water being shared across. So if I mean, what we would want to do is an entire region from Ranipet onwards till the coast has to be declared an eco-sensitive zone and have special consideration. But with this new EIA, I don't think that's not the direction. And you know what? We will not have a say. Even we've been able to stop or delay the execution of the highway for about a year and a half now because of the existing EIA 2006. But now it changes. I was looking at the draft and I want to mention something. So there's a clause that says border areas, which means like 100 kilometers from an international land border, right? Are areas where there is no public consultation required. Essentially, of course, it makes sense strategic reasons. We have a border roads organization, but I was just trying to see. Okay, 100 kilometers seems a lot, right? The entire Indian land area is about 3.2 million square kilometers, and the land border is about 15,200 kilometers. So you multiply that by 100, that's actually 1.5 million square kilometers. So that's close to 50% of the land area of India. I mean, maybe I'm getting my math wrong, but I'm not able to believe it. But that's the calculation: 15,200 kilometers of land border times 100 is coming under this border area. So any linear project, the highways, HT lines, whatever, there is no public consultation. So 40% of the land is 45% of the land is already declared as a border area. I mean, do we really need that much land to be declared as a border area? I mean, 100 kilometers from the border. Imagine that. I think if you're sitting in Bangladesh border, you would cross Calcutta, right? It would be beyond Calcutta. So that is something that beats me. And with regards to Western Tamil Nadu, I mean, I was talking to a friend of Joseph Hoover. So the government is building a medical college in Ooty, and they are acquiring 60 acres of forest land right next to the Kamaraja Sagar Dam, which is like the upper catchment area for Paikara, I think. And so the environmental activists there have been saying, why don't you use the Hindustan Photo Films property, which is pretty much defunct, and there's only a court case with regards to compensation for the workers, right? Instead of doing that, I mean, the land is already there. They already have the buildings, and you save a lot of costs. It's already a constructed area.
Yes.
Yeah. But instead of that, they are actually acquiring, the 60 acres of land, like forest land. And Nilgiris is probably one of the top 2-3 biospheres across the world. And beyond all of that, right? It is like the lifeline for almost 7-8 districts, which are irrigated with water from the Nilgiris, including Tirupur, Bhavani would be affected. So this is the problem, right? So if we are not able to imagine a world where we are able to talk to people and say, what is the kind of development that you want? And this trickle down, top down approach is not going to work. It has never worked. Okay, it started out 20-30 years ago. Essentially, one industry or one business group owning all the ports of India, one owning all the airports of India. And end of the day, look at this, right? End of the day, it's a fight for land, right? We human beings don't change. All of these companies are just getting thousands and thousands of acres acquired under the name of development, right? Do they really need that much land? I mean, if they are actually needing that much land, what is the kind of work that they are doing, right? That is never questioned. So it's essentially a land grab and water resources grab.
Well, on that issue of this nexus, on this issue of nexus and the crony capitalism that we are seeing, and also the implications of crony capitalism on the status of the environment in this country, I would like to ask this question to Ms. Meera on the question of water quality, because there are two things which really strike my mind. One thing is about this category B2, which is being applied for the in this new notification. There is an amendment or for the bulk drug manufacturer. So there is an amendment in April 2020 which says they are shifting the category from A to B2, which means that there requires no clearance because it's already given. And the second thing is this bulk drug manufacturers, there are emerging evidences which says that the effluents from these bulk drug manufacturers, they tend to sort of impact the water bodies and also tend to create a new form of bacteria which are resistant to antibiotics. We are facing that issue already. It is not a future issue. It is an issue that we are facing right now. So if these are the cases, and if the government, I'm sure, is very much aware of these advancements and also these findings by the scientists. So how to sort of reconcile this reality of why such an amendment was done, and also this change in notification has the impact on the water quality as well. Ms. Meera, please.
So it's when I started the conversation, I was talking about this 25 plus red and orange category industries. When I said red and orange category industry, this categorization is coming from the Central Pollution Control Board's website, right? Every industry is categorized as red, orange, and white. Now, how did even when you move industries from category A to B1 or B2 or whatever it is, what is the criteria which MOEF is using? Is it because first of all, what we need to understand is this entire EIA 2020 draft is sitting on an act, which is the Environment Protection Act 1986. The preamble of that act says to protect the environment, right? Now we are using an act to protect the environment to make dilutions on the environmental laws. And that's what is currently happening. And that's the irony of this EIA 2020 draft. Now, having said that, the red and orange category industry is a categorization by CPCB. Now, when you use that categorization and come and analyze EIA 2020 draft, you see many of these toxic industries are moved from category A to B1 without any explanation. Now, even when they remove threshold, no explanation. When they dilute thresholds, no explanation. When they move from A to B1 or B1 to B2, no explanation. So we have no idea what is the scientific basis with which this movement has happened. And definitely there is a dilution, right? Now, having said that, you've given the example of bulk drug category, right?
Yes.
I want to talk about something on pesticide industry manufacturing. Isn't this toxic? Completely exempted from public consultation, right? Be it manufacturing of acids, it falls under red category industry. It's a toxic industry. Now, how did it get exempted from the public consultation process? If it is coming next to my house, definitely I will have groundwater pollution issues, right? Same thing to do with mineral benefaction. Interestingly, if you go to many of these industries, they have used another categorization within that, which says small and medium industries. Now, small and medium industries has nothing to do with your outflow or with your toxic outflow. It is only to do with your basically it is only an economic value indicator. It doesn't have an ecological indicator. Now, if you say small and medium, it doesn't say that it doesn't have any toxicity outflow, right? Classic example is an effluent treatment plant or an incineration plant or a waste incineration plant at 0 kilometer from the protected area. A protected area is a national park or a wildlife sanctuary, right? And we know that all our water sources, all our rivers in South India, it originates in the forests. Now, what are we giving? If you have an incineration plant or if you have a effluent treatment plant next to a PA, which means these forests that we call jungle nadi ki maa, right? This is what our culture says. Jungle nadi ki maa means it is the jungle is actually the forests are the mother of the rivers.
True.
Now, the mother of the rivers, we are sitting and polluting the source of the rivers, right where it starts. Yes. Even when it is a first order stream or a second order stream, we are giving license to to pollute the river. So what are we getting in the downstream? Yes. Now, a place like Tirupur, where dyeing industries and all that, where you have synthetic dyes, micro, small, medium, all these categories, they can, they're all red plus. or rather 25, it falls within the 25 plus red category industry. Hospitals, 150,000 square meter, buildings, including and in fact, hospitals are exempted from public consultation process. Now, there is no rationale to this kind of a change when we say these are, and so, as someone who understands water, you might see the implication of it. These are industries that are polluting, and it will continue to be polluting, right? There is a category which they have added called zero discharge criteria. What is zero discharge? There is no definition. And how will a common man understand that it is actually zero discharge? For example, Sun Pharma, I understand, is also a zero discharge company, right?
Yes.
So these are all the water quality issues that we can foresee with the EIA 2020 draft.
Thank you, Ms. Meera. And I'd like to ask the final question, final response from Karthikeya Sivasenadipati on how the citizens of Tamil Nadu, because I mean, in comparison to other Indian states, the level of water stress, that we have in this state is quite huge, and also the link that we have, the link that is between the ecosystems and the kind of water quality and also the water resources that we have, it's very intimately linked. And also the second case is about the cases of land degradation, which is already starting to take place across the state in various pockets. So, with this being the situation, what should be the response of the people of Tamil Nadu to this notification, sir? Because the time is less, and we understand the central government is acting in a certain way, wherein they tend to sort of do away with many of the inputs that the public tend to give. If such is the very bleak situation that we have, what can we do, and what is the way forward?
Okay. I can take a few minutes, right? So, Tamil Nadu has always been forefront when it comes to politics. In 1920s, we spoke about social justice reservation. 1930s, 40s, 50s, we spoke about language issues, two-language formula, why mother tongue is important, and we opposed imposition of language and culture when other states accepted it. We opposed NEET. We went in for a kind of education. We supported social justice. We invested in education. We invested in healthcare. We invested in women empowerment, women education. We've always been a trendsetter when it comes to any South Asian state.
Yes.
So I think today I was very happy seeing Meera's Facebook page for some time. She was saying when rest of India is quiet, Tamil Nadu is rocking, opposing environmental impact assessment, the amendment to the Environmental Impact Assessment Act. So I am really happy that Tamil Nadu is doing well, opposing the act. The government of Tamil Nadu should actually write to the center stating its stand. See, there are lots of criticisms against the Tamil Nadu government, especially the Dravidian politics, stating the Dravidian parties ruined environment, blah, blah, blah. Actually, it is a false narrative, wantedly created by the right-wing people and the so-called Tamil Desiyavadigal today. If you check out the ruin of environment in other states in India like Chhattisgarh or Odisha or any Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu has done comparatively very well. It is also added to its forest cover. There has been no mining, ruin of forests or private lands or farming lands by mining was never allowed until 2016. All the chief ministers, starting from Kamarajar, Anna, Kalaignar, MGR, Amma, it's not that they did not know there is a mining opportunity in Tamil Nadu, but they did not allow for any large-scale mining in Tamil Nadu. The state was taken care with a motherly, fatherly, paternal care by our chief ministers and leaders until 2016, not after that. So it is the duty of the chief minister today to oppose this draconian amendment, one. Two, culturally, let me go back to an incident which happened in Nagoya. I was in Nagoya, Japan for a UN EP, UNCBD consultation for Conference of Parties 10 in Nagoya, when there was a discussion about the oldest culture or language or literature which speaks about biodiversity, conservation of biodiversity, and I spoke on the Tamil literature which has spoken about conservation of biodiversity 2000 years back to make a big story, a big incident, small for the sake of time. The issue went to Professor M.S. Swaminathan. They said, is it an Indian government official, a senior official from the government of India, said, you always, Tamil people, you South Indians, you always want to claim that you are superior. You have a literature which goes to 2000 years, 3000 years, about everything. Is it true Thiruvalluvar spoke about conservation of biodiversity? I said, yes, sir. He said, Pagutundu Palliyur Ombudal, Nolor Togutha Vettal Ellam Thalai. And he said, no, let me ask somebody, a scientist. And then Professor Swaminathan was asked about this. He quipped, it is not 2000 years back. In fact, Tamil literature spoke about conservation of biodiversity 3000 years back in Tulkapiyam. தொல்காப்பியத்திலேயே திணைகளை பற்றி 5 திணைகளை பற்றி பேசிய ஒரு சமுதாயம் ஒன்று. இரண்டாவது பாத்தீங்கன்னா சிறுபஞ்ச மூலம்னு சொல்லிட்டு 1000 years back there is a poet, there is a book which speaks about what deeds of a human being takes him to Surgam, that is to heaven.
Yeah.
They say 5 things of a human being takes him or her to heaven. One is one who digs a pond, a water, to conserve water. Second is somebody who creates a canal for agriculture, water to travel. Third is somebody who digs a public well. Fourth is who creates cultivable land. Fifth is somebody who plants trees. In all these 5 things, if you do, you will go to heaven, is what this book Sirupanjinolam says. But they never said, if you don't do all this, or if you destroy all this, you will go to hell. Because 1000 years back, no poet could even imagine there will be human beings who will destroy all this. Because once you destroy all this, you don't live in heaven. Automatically, the place you live becomes hell when you destroy nature, when you destroy environment. So this is what I would like to say on behalf of all the Tamil people who have a great hoary past in protecting biodiversity and promoting nature. So let us go back to the past. It's not that we don't need development. We need development, but at what cost? Corona has taught us a lesson. The corona can originate somewhere in China. It can come all over the world and kill us. Today, even our honorable home minister, who has big facilities, has been affected by corona. So corona will not see rich or poor, how many crores you have, how many thousands of crores you have. It's going to affect such kind of viruses are waiting to get activated in the North Pole or the South Pole when global temperatures rise. So let us take care, worry about us, worry about our future generation, and conserve, protect our biodiversity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. On this note, I'm sure the state of Tamil Nadu, which has always been in the forefront of social justice, will also take into account social justice also includes environmental justice. The kind of it's integral. The social justice is integral, even in terms of protecting the environment because of the implications it has on the people. On this note, I would like to thank everyone, all of the panelists here, for sharing your thoughts. And I see that Himakaran wants to share a point. Probably with that, we'll end the conversation.
Thanks, Sai. So today is Adi Perukku, okay, sentimentally a very important day for Tamils, right? And everybody knows about how people go to the river, and what the river is in spate, and that means prosperity, life will be good, our future will be prosperous, all of that, right? But if you look at the EIA-2020, the draft, so projects, hydroelectric projects up to 25 megawatts, right, are in category B2, like Meera has already explained. So essentially, you can have a lot of 25 megawatt projects across the Western Ghats, which will, there won't be Adi Perukku in the future, right? Already, if you look at the Chitrai River in Madurai, when Kallalagar is entering the Vaigai River, for a long time now, they actually construct a 3-4 foot, barrier. They fill water, and symbolically, it's not the actual Vaigai River water that he's entering to. That itself is such a letdown on the vast wealth or the tradition, the culture, the environmental consciousness that Mr. Kartikeya mentioned, that our ancestors built on. So what are we leaving for the future generations? And there's no point in talking about patriotism, nationalism, if you're being so you're betraying the future generations' rights to enjoy these natural resources. That's the only thing that I see happening, right? So culturally, we are made of the soil, we are made of the air, we are made of the water, right? Everything that we do, right? All our festivals, everything is evolved from our engagement with nature. So if as long as policies are taken by people who have this don't have a connect with the land, right, this is the problem. So public consultations, and it has to be decentralized. Information needs to be given to public with sufficient amount of time in their own languages. Back in the day, I mean, even we have this Dandora system where people announce information and they literally go to like the last mile. Every villager, right, gets to hear what the announcement is, right? But if you publish it online and then you have to go to court to get it published in local languages, and then they give you 20 days time, 30 days time. So this whole approach has to change, and people this affects all people, not just environmental activists. I mean, it's not a separate community by itself. They are speaking for everybody. Not just their children. So with that note, it's good to have this conversation, and hopefully people across India will be able to understand these perspectives and join all of us in this fight, and hopefully a better sense will prevail. Thanks.
On this note, we all hope that the better sense prevails. Wish on this day of Adi Perukku, we can sort of invest our time to look at the EIA draft, which is out on the open, for us to comment, for us to submit our comments as well as the suggestions to the central government. I hope they heed to the voice of the people. On this note, I'd like to thank all the panelists and thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.